Hey folks, this is Dave Ceruolo, real estate probate and elder law attorney. I have with me my friend Shannon Henderson, and on our video what we're going to talk about is buyers and what they have to be aware of when it comes to dealing with properties that are involved with probate. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Good morning everyone, Shannon Henderson with Henderson Real Estate Consulting and Keller Williams Realty here in the Boston area, and welcome back to Coffee Talk. So I am here with David Ceruolo, who is a real estate probate attorney, all sorts of interesting areas of law. And today we're really going to hone in on talking about estate planning, how to be prepared if you're not prepared and something happens, how you kind of navigate through that, and even from a buyer's perspective, if you were looking at purchasing a property that is in probate and is going through that process, what can you expect from that? So before we get started, I always like to start with talking about a little bit about, you know, our little props here, our coffee. It's always a part of our show. So I always bring Wonder Woman with me. So, you know, everybody asks me how I do so much. So I pretty much work, I think, from like 5 a.m. to about midnight every night.
That's too much work.
Yeah, it's too much work, but
less work.
Lots of coffee gets me through it. But yeah, I was a big fan of Wonder Woman. She was, you know, my idol growing up. And, you know, so she goes with me every day to inspire me. But what about you? You've got your little cup over here.
I'm a sports fan, so I got my Patriots mug. I got a Red Sox mug, and working on my Celtics mug. I like that team this year.
Okay,
so, yeah.
All right. I know some guys on the Celtics. We might hook you up there.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to find this out. I need some autographs.
Anyway, all right. So let's get started. So, you know, there's a lot of, I do real estate consulting and so forth, so I'm familiar with probate, but I know even a lot of realtors and my, you know, community, my peers might not really understand probate, and especially, you know, your general public. You know, what is probate itself? What does that mean?
Okay, well, basically, when you deal with a probate court, there are two segments. It's the probate and family court. So the probate side of the court handles when someone passes away. Typically, there's estates, or there's a guardianship or conservatorship involved when someone's still alive, and the family needs to go and take care of that person. They need a judge's order to do it. That basically occurs when the person doesn't have estate planning documents in place, or the family's fighting. So you're typically there for that.
Families don't fight.
No, never. The family side handles things like custody, things like when minors are involved in a case, or divorce. Those are all the family side of the probate and family court. So that's what probate in a nutshell is all about.
Okay. So how can we as individuals, really just kind of jumping back and being proactive, how can we prepare for the future? What are some basic tips you can give anyone out there who's watching in order to prevent getting kind of caught up in an unexpected probate situation?
Yeah, so always I recommend, no matter what size your estate is, right, how much money you have, it's always good to have a simple estate plan in place. And what I mean by a simple estate plan is typically 3 big documents. You have your will, your healthcare proxy, and your power of attorney. 2 of the documents are while you're alive. The power of attorney and the healthcare proxy are only around while you're around. The will takes over when you pass away. So always I start off my meetings on estate planning with the simple estate plan and talk to people about what those mean, what the powers are all about, what they're going to entail, and getting those in place for folks.
Okay, great. So if somebody does find themselves in a situation where a loved one has passed away today, you know, something happens, you know, how can they connect with you? How long does this take? How complicated is it to get a real estate attorney? Do we have to find somebody who just practices probate? Can any attorney do this? Can my friend who's an attorney do this? No.
No, actually the Uniform Probate Code was just put in place the last few years. It's been around for over 10, but it was just really put in place the last few years. It's changed everything in the probate court. They were trying to make everything more simple for folks. For instance, what you used to call an executor, now you call a personal representative. They're trying to change the terminology to make it more simple to understand, but in doing so, they created a whole host of new forms that's made it more complicated for folks to go through the probate process. It's thoroughly confusing, actually for us as attorneys as well, because the court is coming out with new they're revising the existing forms, and they're coming out with new forms just about every year now. It used to be every month, and so you'd walk into court and say, "What do I need?" You know, and the clerks wouldn't know what you needed because they didn't know what was coming down the pipe. So, so in essence, the quick answer is no. Someone who isn't versed in it really is going to have a hard time getting through it now because of the way the court is structured, and it's one of these things where even the probate attorneys and the probate clerks are still learning the process. It's getting better progressively, but there's still a long way to go with it. And you're talking about hundreds of years worth of probate law in Massachusetts kind of got shifted a bit, and they tried to update it a bit. So it's taken a while.
Okay. So there's a phrase that I really love. You think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you don't hire one.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely recommend in Massachusetts, you know, in the real estate process when you're closing, you need an attorney. Attorneys actually work together to make sure all those documents protect you, protect all parties, and it is, you know, something that's expected in Massachusetts. And from my side, just kind of speaking from a real estate lens, you know, you should find a real estate agent or realtor who is familiar with the probate process, because we do have attorneys that we will work with on a regular basis so that we can work through all of the phases and steps of selling your home.
It's good to have a good team.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have a team in place, whether you're selling or you're buying. You have to have a team in place.
Exactly, exactly. So, you know, from our side, from a real estate side, it's really a very similar process to if you were just selling your home. So families come to us, we make sure that everything is in order with the attorney, and we go through all the normal phases. So it's figuring out how much that home is worth. It is doing the marketing, it's bringing it to market, and once we do have offers, if we have multiple offers, it's selecting that offer, and then in many cases, that offer will need to be approved in some cases by the courts. I've heard you might have to go to court to get in certain cases.
If the property is coming out of probate, the first big question is whether the family on the seller's side is fighting. If the family on the seller's side, the heirs, right, on the seller's side are fighting, then you're going to have a long process if you're a buyer, and you have to decide whether you're willing to last the long haul. Some of these cases can stretch on for years if they're fighting. They're just not coming to an agreement on anything. I have a few of those cases they're stretching on now. If the family is getting along and they're all in agreement, there's two ways that you can file probate. If they're getting along, there's the informal way. And with the informal process, you file the whole host of the petition and all the accompanying documents with the probate court. You get what we call the assents of the parties. The next question is if there's a will or not, which I'll talk about. And once you have those assents, then the process can go relatively quickly. Now, realtors and clients alike don't understand that when we talk about relatively quickly in the probate court, it's not that fast.
Yeah.
It's not as fast as you like it to be. People get frustrated a lot, so you have to understand, and I usually will talk to the client, you're going to get frustrated through the process. It's a process. It doesn't move smoothly sometimes, it doesn't move quickly, but even if you have the assents or the agreements of all the parties on the other side, the court will say, oh, well, we'll get back to you, and you're waiting a month or two for that approval to come back, or what we call the letters of authority. If the family's not getting along, then there's the formal way of doing things, and that's when you have a judge involved in hearings and fighting and trials. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I roll my eyes. So those are the two ways that a case can be filed, formally or informally. If the family's getting along, usually it's informally. Usually. There's exceptions. If the family's not getting along in general, then it's a formal process.
Okay, very good. So another side note, I know you also do real estate transactions, things like that yourself. So I specialize myself in a lot of, I work with a lot of investors who, you know, they're like, where are the foreclosures? Where's this? Where's that? Where's the
I roll my eyes again. Good luck with that.
Exactly. So, you know, you really want to study up. If you are just getting into real estate investing or you've been doing it a long time, it is a complex process. And you need a team in order to help you through that process. So we can certainly do that. But study up, because your funds, you know, can be tied up for a little bit until you actually go to closing. So you need to, you know, determine if that's something that you want to take on. So, yeah.
Yeah, so on that note, if you're an investor and you're looking for the distressed properties, first thing you gotta understand is distressed properties are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
It's a dysfunctional transaction, so all of the normal things that you might be accustomed to in buying real estate go out the door. If you got a short sale, you got a seller that's not getting any money out of the sale, you're going to have someone who's not taking care of the property and doesn't really care whether you get the property or not, and is not going to really want to talk to you because they're in distress, they're in an emergency situation, and they just want to dump the property. Likewise, if you're dealing with a foreclosure, banks are a lot of fun to deal with. No, they're not. So the bank is not going to let you change their contract at all. Some banks will give you the ability to go in. A lot of them now. When the market crashed, a lot of them weren't allowing you to go in and inspect. Now the bank's kind of loosened on that a little bit. They're usually allowing you to go in and inspect the properties. Be diligent, because once you get the property, it's a true as-is transaction, and this is broken, yeah, good luck, go after the bank, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So they're dysfunctional in general, and you just got to keep that in mind. It's a frustrating process to go through with that as well with that. It can be long. Sometimes if the bank is really prepared, it can be short, and if the bank did the foreclosure and they messed up the title, you're going to be held up. And there's a difference between insurable title and clear title. You have to understand the difference. So that's where a good attorney is going to come in and tell you about that.
Okay. So if someone wants to educate themselves on this process, they want to take this on, what are some resources that you might recommend for them? Other than yourself.
Google. Well, a good attorney that's been through the battle is going to be able to tell you the ups and downs of it. But you're going to Google a lot of information. If it's foreclosed properties, you're going to Google REO. Yeah. That's going to tell you a lot of information about real estate owned property, which is bank owned property. Short sales, there really is no manual for it. Every bank treats them differently. In general, they ask for the same information, but the process that the bank goes through is different. Depends on, a lot of times, it used to be that the larger the bank, the worse the process was. Now it's kind of reversed roles. Well, not reversed, but kind of evened off. The larger banks have gotten better at the process because they've gone through it a lot. And the smaller banks, you're just dealing with a small bank. And typically you're dealing with one person and you can talk to them. Yeah. So for resources, Google. There's Google Scholar out there. If you haven't heard of that, look that up. You can YouTube some of it, but if real estate is really state specific, so you got to be careful in the state that you're looking at as to the process. And that would be, or a good attorney that's been through the battle. You have to line these people up. It's good to have a team. That's the best way to protect yourself. Yeah,
it's true, because really, every day I'm dealing with different types of transactions, and every single one is very unique, and it's not cookie cutter whatsoever. So we can help to navigate through.
Every property is different. Yep. Exactly. Don't take properties with tenants there. If there's tenants on the property, walk away quickly. Or the owner, walk away quickly.
You can actually look back at some of our previous shows. We did a show on landlording and some of the things. That could be a week-long show.
I'm talking about walk away if the tenant's there on a distressed property. Yeah. If you're buying an investment property with tenants there, that's workable. We can do that. You just have to look at the leases and see what the tenancies are all about.
Yeah, exactly. So, before we close for now, any other tips or topics that you think are important for people to check out on these particular areas? And then if you can share your website with us, that would be great.
So my website is ceruololaw.com. I do have a YouTube channel under David Ceruolo. I got over 100 videos posted up there now. Ceruolo Law is on Facebook, and Ceruolo Law is on Twitter. As far as topics or things that you can look into, I have a whole variety of things on my YouTube channel that you can certainly look at, but learning a little bit about the probate process, if that's where you're going to head, I would say don't jump into too much at once. If you're going to head toward probate property or deal with probate property, then you want to learn as much as you can about probate. So you're going to go to the resources, Google, and make sure you Google in Massachusetts, because probate law is different in Massachusetts as it is in another state. California is totally off the chart different. So make sure you're in the right state. If you're going to be going after distressed properties, then you got to make sure you identify what type of a distressed property that you're going for, and make sure that you specifically research that topic, because it's like apples and oranges. You just have to make sure that you're understanding what you're getting yourself into. Have your money lined up, whether it's hard money, whether you're going to be doing cash, or whether you're going to be doing financing. Make sure that you have your loan officer or your hard money lender lined up and understand what that's all about. That's a lot of money. So.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah. So, and then as far as real estate resources through me, of course you can, follow my page, which you're watching right now, but also you can reach out to us at www.hendersonrealestateconsulting.com, and again, you have the number that's directly linked to this post. So if you have any topics that you would like to learn more about, real estate is such a fascinating business, and law is such a fascinating business, and things change every day. So don't just learn for today, but keep educating yourself each day so that you can be set up for success. So thank you guys for joining, and good luck. Good luck this week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.